This one, very specifically for me, when I look at different tarot decks, shows somebody waiting for something to come into them, waiting to see how something is going to develop. But, like I've always said with the Three of Wands, you should already know what's coming at you. You should already know what to expect, because these are the things that you've acted toward. But I kind of get the feeling that for a lot of you, this is going to be about the other person kind of waiting on you. Now, with the Four of Swords is what you're coming in with. This to me is showing that there's at least a break. Not like a breakup or the ending of a relationship, but you are not saying anything right now. You may be needing to just take a time out. Some of you may be going through the recovery. I don't think that you're the only ones that are heartbroken here, but on their side, they may feel a little bit heartbroken because there isn't a lot of connection with you right now. Now, that could be because of something that they may have done. Whatever the situation is, that's kind of what you're bringing into it at this point. This person may be heartbroken, trying to get over that, and you may be doing the same thing, trying to recover, but you're not talking. Now, where you meet in terms of the relationship, you're showing the Five of Pentacles, they're showing the King of Swords. I have to wonder if the reason why you're not talking is because the issue in terms of the relationship is that there is something that you're being kept separate from involving them. Now, with the King of Swords on their side, it may be that they are trying to communicate to you in a way where you understand why they don't want you to be a part of something that they may be dealing with. Now, on the other hand, you may be the King of Swords to them and trying to explain something to them, but it may be because you don't feel like you're a part of something. Because the Five of Pentacles is like, I'm not included, and it may be that that's what you're trying to work on here, and that may be what you're waiting for is some kind of communication or understanding as to why there may have been some rejection. That, or this is you like not wanting them to know about something, right? Not wanting them to be a part of your life. But the King of Swords, right? Like, this is somebody who is trying to kind of clear things up, but, someone who is speaking the truth. But I still feel like somebody is trying to rationalize what is happening here, or at least trying to understand what, they are not being made a part of. Now, the way that you move down on this, though, with the Six of Swords, I think that it's really about the things that you're not wanting this other person to be involved with. I think that there are things that you need to move on from. I don't think that you're wanting to move on from the relationship, but if you're communicating this to this person, it like opens the door where there is, still this want or still this belief that their wishes will be fulfilled by being connected with you. Because this is about, well, this is what I want, or this is what I've wanted. But, there are things that you needed to move on from. Now, in terms of what they want and what you want, that may be the conflict that you're needing to kind of clear up. Now, moving out of that, though, with the Two of Pentacles, I think that you're trying here with the Six of Swords, whatever it is that's going on with you. But with the Two of Pentacles, it's like you're still trying to figure some things out and at the same time keep this relationship in balance. But I think that there are some things that you don't want to talk about or don't want to have this person be a part of. Now, with the Knight of Cups, though, I think that, and this is for both of you, I don't necessarily feel like this is about, what somebody is doing in the moment. I would be careful about that on your side, honestly, if you feel like there are some things that you still need to kind of like figure out. Now, with the Knight of Cups, I feel like what's happening here is that this person, is still very much wanting to go with what they feel in regards to you. There is still definitely, the heartbreak and the recovery that's coming through. And like I said, for some of you, I'm going to say that it's going to have to do with you and things that you need to work out. Now, on the other hand, some of you may have felt rejection by this person And you may not be understanding that, and that may be what they're trying to clear up, right? Which can be the case here. But with the Knight of Cups, I think that emotionally, the both of you are still like available to each other, but it's really about, one person who is coming in to make that offering. Like, I feel like that's the expectation. That is what somebody is waiting for here. Now, with the Hierophant, we can be talking about, getting back to a place where we're talking about a traditional relationship, a commitment here. And is that what the other person wants? And maybe you can't do that yet because there are still things that you need to figure out, whether it's in your own life or in regards to what this person may have put you through. And then the Ace of Swords. It's funny because the big thing that I'm getting here is that a lot of people it feels like you guys aren't the only one. Everybody is being patient with the other person right now and trying to keep themselves in balance and keep themselves in check while somebody else is trying to figure themselves out or their bullshit out. I mean, that's what I'm continuously seeing. So here's what I'm getting from this. Let's just look at the Hierophant for a minute, because immediately clarifying this, I felt like this is the other person. This is how they were in the past. With the King of Wands, this is somebody who isn't really known to commit. But also, you could be talking about somebody who is having an identity crisis, especially with the Moon being there. And I think that you're the one that's kind of, patiently waiting for them to kind of figure out how they feel, how they're seeing themselves, how they're seeing the relationship, especially if they've had commitment issues in the past, or if they may have been someone who was constantly open to, all kinds of experiences and not really, being open to the experience with you as far as a committed relationship, or at least a traditional one. With the Ten of Wands, I feel like that's, kind of the baggage that you're trying to figure out is, well, what was wrong with you before? Are they going to commit? Are they going to give you that kind of traditional relationship? My God, if I could talk. Or are they going to continue to go through this identity crisis and just kind of continue to do things based on how they feel? But for you, right, like, I don't feel like there's weight or pressure on you to make a choice. I think that the weight and pressure is, whether or not you can reconcile the fact that they may not have been, fully committed before. And that may be the baggage that needs to be cleared up. With Temperance and the Moon, like I said, it's like you're being patient with them while they're trying to figure it out, right? But they're not seeing things clearly, though, with the Moon. Now, you may get to a point, though, where you speak a very, blunt truth almost. And then with Judgment, they're forced to kind of look at themselves and look at this relationship. And maybe they need to kind of clear up, their own past here and the way that they were, right? But I think that you kind of get to the point where it's not about patience. It's not about, you trying to keep yourself in balance anymore. It's about just telling them the truth, about how you feel, but I still feel like you're willing to, work things out. But like I said, for some of you, I do think that it's about things that are going on with you, though, too. But I would say to you, don't wait around forever for them to kind of figure themselves out here, right? But the Knight of Cups, to me, is a good indicator that, what you're waiting on for them to do, they probably do. I don't think that this is about you needing to come to them with this offer or, wanting to have this connection. I just think that you're dealing with somebody that needs to figure themselves out. But then if you are dealing with things, though, too, that you don't want them to be a part of, you're going to have to figure that out, though, too. And then the Queen of Pentacles. And, I feel like for a lot of you, you may have already been separated from this person for a while. I don't think that it's on the horizon. I think that this is what you're already dealing with. I think that eventually it's going to lead there, though, again. Now, with the Hermit, definitely, that is you on your own. Wanting a relationship here, thinking about what that relationship would look like, wanting to have that happen for you. And Strength is you hanging in there, right? But where you meet in the middle on this, though, the Page of Cups is about somebody who is having a hard time expressing their feelings. And this may be you. With the Hermit, you're still like trying to figure out exactly what it is that you want in terms of a relationship or with one person in particular here. And you may have a hard time trying to tell them how you feel. But with Justice coming out, I think that you may feel like the fair thing to do here is to just focus on yourself, honestly, here with the Queen of Pentacles coming out. Because I look at the Knight of Swords, and this one's weird to me anyway. This is about conquering. It's like the reason why you may not be able to kind of like spit out or speak about how you feel is because you're starting to realize that this person has you exactly where they want you, and maybe you don't want to be in that position anymore. You know, because we're talking about somebody who feels like they have control over another person in a relationship, absolutely, with the Knight of Swords here. But, you know, are you keeping yourself stuck? Are you letting them have this kind of control? But ultimately, like I said, coming out here, it looks like you feel like the fair thing to do would be to focus on yourself. Because the Queen of Pentacles, you know, she realizes that she doesn't need anybody to satisfy her. You know, there are other things in life to be focusing on rather than this person. Especially if they're not, you know, even making an attempt here to talk to you, though, either. And then the Five of Wands, I don't like that. Boy. All right. Especially with that Page of Cups being there. You know, and for some of you, I don't know that you really want to be involved with somebody from the past, especially if they were a little bit controlling. Now, when you're looking at the Seven of Cups, though, you're talking about the fantasies that you have either surrounding a relationship or somebody in particular, or, you know, what you want in terms of a relationship, but how do I make the fantasy happen, right? And you're finding the strength to kind of continue, even though you may not be realizing the fantasy that you want in regards to either, like I said, a person or a relationship. Somebody is definitely having a hard time communicating how they feel. But another person may feel like they have control over you and how you're feeling. But with the Six of Cups, right, you're looking back to the past. And again, it could be a past relationship, or we could be talking about the way that, you know, you thought about how a relationship should go for you. But it's like focusing on that, but it not really happening, not really taking control and saying something, you know, which could be to someone in particular. And it could be somebody who's already in a relationship. But I don't think that any of you are wanting to look in on their relationship anymore. I really do think that you get to a point where you're more focused on you now. I don't really care anymore. I'm going to stop looking at this or looking at other relationships wishing that's what I had. You know, but in terms of separation, though, right, you may absolutely be separated from somebody that, you know, may either want to get back together with you, them. You know, and somebody else could definitely be in a relationship where somebody is peeking in on this, whether this is you or the other person. But like I said, I feel like this is definitely you coming out here where it's like, I need to just focus on me, right? Because this isn't really fair to me to be in this situation where I'm just seeing this person with somebody else and they're not with me. And the Ten of Cups. All right. Some of you may absolutely feel like this person is a soulmate to you. But the problem is that they are not going to commit. I don't know that they want to take the relationship to that point. You know, but I think that for you, there's at least some belief that it's going to go that way. But where you come out at, you know, what I worry about is that you're not seeing that this person may feel like they're being forced to do this. Or it's the other way around here. This could be about Cap not wanting to do this. The Four of Pentacles, you're talking about somebody in the relationship here that is trying to get the attention of the other person, trying to get the passion going. They're really, you know, trying to make an effort here. But with the Knight of Pentacles, this is like, you know, I'm not really all that interested. You know, like, that's okay. I don't really want to even push it any further. But I think that somebody here is at least trying to get this person to understand that, they're wanting to have the committed relationship, the traditional relationship, right? And like I said with the Hierophant, it's about spiritual support in this deck in particular, right? I mean, that is what the creator was trying to get across, even though the image looks horrible, which it's no wonder why people point that out as the narcissist. But I think that you're dealing with somebody who doesn't want to commit. When you're looking at the Queen of Wands, she is somebody who doesn't want to be tied down, right? Wants to keep her options available. Sometimes this is somebody that just, is not, open or available to another person, right? And like I said, this could be you or the other person here. But I don't think that you're dealing with, a situation where there's going to be any kind of commitment. Now, coming out of it, though, somebody is forcing the situation, and with the Ten of Cups, somebody thinks everything is okay, but the other person is not really being open and honest with that. And then the Moon, but I think that you're dealing with a person who wants to live out their fantasies. I don't think that they really want to be committed. And like I said, this could be the person you're dealing with, or it's you. Now, like I said, with the Eight of Pentacles, this is somebody who is definitely not interested, but there isn't like, I hate you or I want to end this. It's still like at a friendly level, so to speak. But somebody is waiting on the other person to figure it out because they're still bound to this person, right? But like I said, with the Queen of Wands being there, with the Hierophant, that's not somebody who really wants to commit, right? And again, somebody, forcing themselves to be okay with a situation, and another person is not realizing that that's how they feel. And that may be because they still want to live out their own fantasies with the Moon being there. But yet they're not letting go of you, though, either.